Hello, Casting for Recovery alumni and friends. Thank you so much for joining us for this next installment of the virtual programming for the Pink Fly Club. Today we will be bringing you a fly fishing refresher. We often talk about ways to keep past participants engaged in the sport, and we're hoping that this will help do so. Joined today by Kay Duchesne, who is the lead fly fishing instructor for the Colorado program, and also a dear friend, an amazing angler. And I'm Jen Lofgren, and I work as the Western Regional Program Manager for the national staff, also based in Colorado. So today we are in beautiful Deckers, Colorado, on the South Platte River. And Kay, what can we look forward to talking about today?
Well, thanks, Jen, for having me here today. I'm really excited and hoping to get past participants excited again about getting out to the river or wherever your fishing spot is, a lake or the saltwater, and enjoying fly fishing again. I know it's been a long time since your retreat, and we want to briefly refresh you on some of the skills that you learned, but also try to give you a little bit of confidence to get out there and go fish again and renew that enthusiasm that you had for fly fishing after your retreat.
Absolutely. So without further ado, let's talk about how we can get out there and go fish. So what's the first thing we need to do? We need to put our rod and reel together. So Kay, you want to kick us off here?
All right. What we're putting together today is a 4-piece fly rod. Most fly rods today are 4-piece fly rods. Remember, we're trout fishing in Colorado. A good all-around trout fishing rod in Colorado is going to be a 5-weight. We have a 9-foot 5-weight 4-piece rod here. And so what you do is you stick the ferrule together. You can see on this rod that there are dots that allow you to line it up. Not all rods have that dot, but you can also just kind of gently twist until those line guides line up perfectly. These little loops that go on that are on the rod, you don't want to mash these together. You just want to do it firmly and maybe put just a little bit of a twist right at the end so that it stays firm. Once you get that done, in order to line up the bottom section, sometimes it's easier to get that rod on there. In general, right-handed people will be reeling with their left hand when they fly fish. And so you want to have the handle on the left-hand side if you're right-handed, and the reel faces down when you're fishing. It's not on top. So what you do, you want to get the reel seat into the specific place on the rod that fits that seat. And you kind of jam it up in there. And then this ring here goes over also. You can see that. And then this lock nut locks it in sturdily. At that point, you can find your line. This one has a leader on it, and we'll go over in a little while how you put a leader on your line. But you find that in there, and then what you want to do is you want to strip out more than a rod's length of the actual line.
So as a reminder, the line is going to be the heavier sort of waxen plastic feeling line that is colored, and the leader will be the clear monofilament.
Make sure that you bring the line out in front of that bottom reel support. You don't want it going over the back because it will abrade things and also just kind of get in the way.
To make life easier, rather than trying to hold on to the tiny little tapered tip of the leader and thread them through that way, I'm going to go down to where the loop-to-loop system meets the leader and the fly line, and I'm going to go about another 3-4 inches, pinch the line over and run it through this way. I will walk it down the length of the rod hopefully not missing any, but I know Kay will tell me because she's watching like a hawk down there. I can feel it since this is her rod that I'm spooling up, or rather lining up. All right, and there we are at the tip. Kay, did I miss any?
No, you missed none.
All right,
You
it's
got
gonna
it.
be a banner day. And there you have it.
And there you have it. At this point, we're ready to move on and rig up the flies and the tippet for fishing.
Okay, we have now assembled the rod and reel, and we've got it all lined up. And now we're going to get to the next part, which is getting the leader and tippet and fly all dialed in on your rod and reel setup. So Kay is going to demonstrate first for us the loop-to-loop system.
Yep, and obviously we're using bigger materials so that you can see them, and later on we'll do it on that. We'll rig up the actual rod. Okay, first of all, if you need a new leader or you need to put a new leader on, leaders generally come with a factory loop on them that looks like this loop we've created out of old fly line. What you want to do is, if this were connected to the rod,
I'll be the rod.
you'll be the rod. You want to stick the factory loop of the line through the leader and then pull the full leader through that, and then cinch it down so that you end up with what looks like a figure 8 knot, or this type of knot here. And that's how you put on a new leader. Simple. Once you have your leader on, you might want to add some tippet. Tippet comes in these little spools, and that way you can be sure of what size the monofilament or the leader material is that you're presenting to your fish.
Why would you add tippet to the end of your leader?
Instead of just having to put on a new leader when you retie on a few flies, what you do is you put on some tippet to extend the life of your leader. I like to say that there are only 2 knots that you really need to know for fly fishing, and you can fish the rest of your life with those 2 knots. If you're a knot geek, like some of us are, you can go learn those later, but to start with, all you need are 2 knots. The first knot you need to know is the one that attaches tippet to your leader, and we use a surgeon's knot for that. We're gonna pretend that this is the leader here that is connected to the rod. This is my piece of tippet that I've taken off. You want to cross those over like that.
And in the beginning, give yourself a lot of extra line. It makes it a lot less frustrating to tie these knots when you're not trying to make it happen with too little line.
Exactly. And so I describe it as just a double overhand knot, or the start of tying your shoes twice. And these tag ends, these loose ends over here, go through that loop 2 times. If this were actual tippet material, I'd spit on it a little bit to lubricate it and keep it from abrading itself. And then you want to pull all 4 ends at the same time, and it should snug up on itself in this nice little kind of barrel shape. And that's how you attach tippet to your leader. The second knot that you need to know is called the clinch knot, and that's the knot we use for attaching a fly to the end of your leader or the end of your tippet. Obviously this is a little larger than what we usually use for trout in Colorado. What you do is you take the end of your leader or tippet. I kind of like to keep it consistent and stick it through the backside or the spine size of a fly. Whoops.
That happens.
The eye of the fly. And then you want 5 or 6 full rotations of this material over itself. I'm a fly spinner. Some people hold it over here and go like that, but I'm a fly spinner, so I'll just do it that way. And so you do 5 full rotations, and you can see that happening there. Now I'm going to undo it a couple because this won't cinch down on itself. But if it were actual tippet material, you want to have 5. And then you can see that little loop that's right behind the eye. I want to take that tag end and bring it through that loop, and then I grab it with my thumb and forefinger there, and then moisten it and pull hard, but you want to pull from the standing end that is attached to the rod, not the little tag end here. It won't cinch down correctly. So I pull that, and it clinches down nicely on itself, and that's a well-seated knot right there. Okay, so you have your rod put together, your reel on, your leader on, your tippet on if necessary. I always like to kind of stretch out my leader, take those coils out of it, and then Jen's going to demonstrate tying that fly on and making sure that the flies we use, we debarb all of our hooks. If you look at this big hook here, you can see that barb there. Even the little hooks we use in Colorado, and even the big hooks, not quite this big, that we use in saltwater, we always debarb them. There's no reason to leave the barbs on there, and it's much better for the fish to not have a barb. In general, we practice catch and release so that people can come out and fish again. And it does a lot less harm removing that hook if there's no barb there. So
It also
Jen?
hurts a lot less to pull it out of yourself when
Yeah.
you catch yourself.
been there, done
Yes,
that many
yes,
times.
yes, yes.
So.
Okay, so I'm going to do a shameless plug for my very favorite fly fishing tool. If I were stranded on a fly fishing island, it's called the Tie-Rite, and Casting for Recovery sells them in our shop. Anyway, as you can see, Kay mentioned the barb. There is a barb on this hook, which we're going to crimp down with some forceps after I get it tied on. Wish me luck. I'm going through the back of the eye of the hook, as Kay demonstrated with the larger hook. And again, we're tying the clinch knot. So I'm going to give this, I say, 5 half or full rotations. Okay. And then I'm going to give myself a little room here. Cinch that little bit of tippet so I can run the tag end through. And as Kay said, my tool is actually holding my fly for me, but I'm tightening down the knot with the running line, or the line that's attached to the rod and itself. So I'm now going to take the fly off of my Tie-Rite. And oh, my Casting for Recovery nippers. Those are also available in the store. Anywho, I'm going to cut that little tag end off, not too close because we don't want it to come undone. I always test my knot, make sure it's good to go. And then I'm going to crimp down, I'm going to crush that barb. It's a lot easier to see on one of these bigger hooks than it is on a tiny hook, but make sure you get that crushed down. It's a lot more forgiving, as Kay said, to the fish. We want to sustain our fisheries for generations to come. Here we are in the lovely South Platte. It's a bright sunny day, not a cloud in the sky, which is good news, bad news for trout fishing, huh?
That's right, that's
Yeah.
right. But it certainly makes our visibility good, and it makes for a lovely day. So the first thing I would do if I were going to come and fish, which I am coming to fish today, is I don't want to just barrel on out into the middle of the river. Oftentimes there's going to be fish right next to the bank. And so I don't want to just get in the water because I can get in the water and because I'm waitered up. Sometimes you don't have to get into the water at all. And that's fine. There's no reason just because you have waders on to get out there. So I'm going to look at it, try to decide where I think fish might be holding, look for fish that might be rising to natural insects that are on the water. So I'm looking to read the water a little bit, and you probably remember that from your retreat, so we won't go over a whole lot of that right now.
I will say we have a bit of an advantage, and highly recommend doing this every time you go fishing. We did check the flow this morning for this stretch of river, and it's flowing at 426 cubic feet per second, or CFS. And Kay can give you the scientific description of what all that means, but basically how many cubic feet are flowing per section or square mile or something per second.
It's the
square
discharge
foot.
coming out from below
Yeah.
the dam, but yeah.
Like that. And we also stopped into our local fly shop, Flies and Lies, and they gave us some really wonderful advice about some of the hatches to expect throughout the day, and also some flies to use.
Yes, they did.
All right.
And so I think at this point we can go ahead and demonstrate 2 casts again. We're not going to go into depth on casting. You guys did that at your retreats. There's plenty of videos out there for you to refresh exactly the techniques. And also, it's something that takes some practice. So we'll show you actually from the bank a couple of casts, and then after that we'll go, if we need to access the water, we will.
Excellent.
And we'll show you how to safely wade.
Okay. All right. We're going to demonstrate 2 casts today. I am going to demonstrate the false cast, dry fly cast. There are a couple of reasons why you would ever use this cast. One is to dry your dry fly, or 2 is to pull out more line and get more distance on your cast. So I'm going to do my very best not to get caught in this cottonwood tree, but if I do, you all can laugh. Okay, so I'm going to pull out, as Kay said, about, I don't know, 3 times the length of my fly rod, which again is 9 feet. And I'm just going to use this gentle arc, 10 and 2 arc, and then lay it out there.
And so you can see that the motion of the rod is about, if you imagine a clock, from about 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and that there is a sudden and definite stop on the front side and the back side.
We have gone through the false cast. Now we're going to show you the roll cast. We are actually going to step into the water, even though we said don't do that, but we are going to do that. So in the meantime, we're going to show you some safe wading techniques and a safe way to enter the water with your buddy system. So approach the water we go. This is a bit of a steep bank, so we want to be mindful not to go in the steepest place. My tall friend might go in ahead of me because she tends to get to the ground quicker than I do. So
All right.
would you like to go ahead and I'll jump in behind you?
Okay. And I just want to point out that I'm going to look downriver first and make sure that if something bad happens, I'm not going to go straight off a waterfall or into a knot of willows or anything like that. It looks fairly clear down there. So I'm going to hop in here. I'm old, so sometimes the best thing to do is just hop down on your butt like that.
That's it. But I'm young, so I'm going to show you how to do it from way up here. Okay. As you can see, Kay braced me and helped me into the water. And again, we have observed our surroundings, and we're going to take a few steps with only one person taking the steps at a time, so that we make sure we always have one set of sure feet planted.
Yep. So it's kind of like you're slingshotting each other across the river, because of course where we want to fish today is going to be out there, and the water flow is high enough that it's going to be pretty strong. So we're going to help each other get out to that section of river. This is also how you would cross a river if you wanted to cross if you had a friend with you. So I'm set here, And you can either lock elbows, hold hands, whatever works for you. And then Jen takes a couple steps towards the middle of the river. She's set. I take a couple of steps towards the middle of the river. Then it starts getting a little faster out here, so we really make sure we're set.
Okay.
Because we have the current here, the water provides a little bit of back pressure on your cast. And let's say there were willows here behind me, which frequently there are. There are few circumstances where you're actually going to be able to do that big, huge cast. And if you're throwing a nymph rig, it's going to be tough to do, with all that weight on the line, to do one of those big casts. And so the easiest thing to do is what's called a roll cast or a river cast. And so what you want to do is at the end of your cast, you bring the line up, you wait for, at the end of your cast, or the end of your drift, you bring the line up, you raise your rod tip, you wait for that line to drop behind your rod. At that point, you go forward and deliver the fly where you want it to go. It's very easy. The timing is much easier on this because I can wait here.
You can wait there while I have a ham sandwich.
Well, she has a ham sandwich. And then I cast forward where I want it to go. Now I'm going to show you how it works when I'm in the current of the water. And so I want to cast it up there. I'm allowing that fly to drift down the river. When I'm at the end of the drift, I bring this back till the line drops behind me and cast it up again. So with that roll cast or river cast, I cast up. One of the most important things about catching fish is that the fly is moving in what we call a good drift. You can see that grasshopper there. I want it to float down the river as if it were connected to nothing. So I don't want to pull it around, or I don't want to let it swing at the end of the drift. Once it gets to the end and it starts swinging like that, that's not going to be a good drift. Trout are not very smart, but they know how their food moves, and they will tend to shy away if it moves in a way that looks like it's ambulatory when it shouldn't be. Don't be intimidated by having to cast your whole 100 feet of fly line. That's not what you need. This is an adequate cast to catch fish in most rivers in Colorado.
So I have a nymph and some split shots, so this casts a little differently than a dry fly. I'm going to go ahead and give it a cast upstream. I'm going to strip the line back towards me under my forefinger. I'm going to let it go down, 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 lowering my rod tip as it goes down. And what I'm looking for is any disruption in the natural drift of the fly. So if it pauses, if it, what we call winks, just kind of goes a little bit down, but it's not going to be a dramatic take. Fish, as I like to say, are a bit like sommeliers. They're going to take a little sip in once they realize it's not an actual bug or bait or live fly of some sort. They're going to blow that right back out. If I see a pause, I'm going to go ahead and set the hook downstream. In a river, fish always face into the current. What you want to do if you are performing a hook set is to raise your rod tip, but also kind of raise it in a way that is towards downstream, which will pull it into the fish's mouth. So if she had a hit right there, she would pull it kind of up, but also sideways
to hook it into the fish's mouth. What you don't want to do is pull it straight upstream. So if Jen were to do that, it pulls it right out of the fish's mouth. Hook sets are free.
If you see something, set something. Okay, Kay, we got one.
All right. Jenny getting the skunk off. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And let me see here. Keep him in the water. Jen had a 3-fly rig on here, so we're gonna get the other flies out of the way. It may be that, nope, the fly's
Stick
still
the
in
hook.
there. Fly's still in there. You can see it's a really tiny little fly right in the corner of its mouth. Debarbed, so it should come right out if I get the correct angle on it, which may require glasses. There we go.
Let's give him a drink.
Yep, we'll give him a little drink. It's in an odd spot kind of behind his jaw cartilage, so we'll use the hemostats to get it out. And
There we go.
perfect. All right, so that popped right out. And now I'm gonna take Jen's rod and she's gonna demonstrate the proper way of releasing a fish. Pull up that net.
Got it. As you can see, we both wet our hands before we touch the fish. Oftentimes you can just lower your net to release the fish. He's kind of a little guy and he's been through a lot getting that fly out, so I'm going to get him in some kind of calmish water here. But you always want to just gently cradle the fish. This is a little rainbow trout. Gently cradle the fish, and then you're going to lower him into the stream, releasing him into the current, facing upstream. And he swam off. You never want to rock them back and forth because forcing water through their gill plates going the wrong way is a quick way to kill a trout. So just gently set them in the water, and when they're ready to swim off, they will. So there you have it. Catch and release fly fishing.
Nice work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining and tuning in today. We hope it's been valuable for you. We will be sending out a document called Ready to Fly Solo, a continuation in the sport of fly fishing.
Exactly. And I hope you feel pumped up and ready to go. One of the first things that you need to do is buy a fishing license. Those are important and required in every state that I know of. So go and get a fishing license. Usually you can get those online, and they support your state's Division of Wildlife. In addition, in general, you get some benefits like free rescues if you get yourself in a pickle, but mostly it just supports fisheries and the DOW in your state. So do that. In addition, always go to your local fly shop. Jen and I always, if we go fishing together somewhere out of town, we'll hit the local fly shop and buy a few flies from them and usually get some really great advice from them.
Absolutely, yeah. You can't place too much value in your local fly shop. Also, ways to get involved. Join a local river cleanup. Join your TU, Trout Unlimited organization. They take care of our waterways, and it's important to support the conservation efforts to make sure that these beautiful resources are available for generations to come. So eliminate single-use plastics, take more trash out than you bring in when you go fishing, and just get out there and have fun. Go fish.
Go fish!